It starts with one small change. No one panics, no one fights back. A single book is pulled from the library shelves. No announcement, no debate, it just vanishes. The next week, a journalist is arrested. No one's told why. People assume it's a misunderstanding. Maybe they said the wrong thing. A month later, history books are rewritten. A few sentences at first, a paragraph here and there. A war that was once called an invasion is now a liberation. A brutal leader is no longer described as a dictator, but a visionary. By the time the voting laws are changed, by the time the independent press is gone, by the time people realize what's happening, it's already too late. For centuries, power-hungry leaders have followed the same step-by-step plan to seize control. They don't invent new strategies. They don't need to, because their playbook has worked every time. There's nothing new here. It's called history, and learning about it can prevent the mistakes of repeating it. First, before we expose exactly how this old playbook works, if you enjoy stories like this, uncovering history they tried to erase, this is what we do here. Twice a week, we bring you the stories that must be told. So if you haven't yet, hit that like button and subscribe. If you want to control the future, control what people learn. A mother in Berlin walks her son to school in 1937. She doesn't notice the difference at first, the same teacher, the same classroom, the same kids. But something feels off. The blackboard that once had a list of famous German authors now has a quote from a politician, Adolf Hitler. When her son comes home, she asks what he learned today. He tells her about the great German race, about how their people are superior, about the enemies who live among them. She never taught him that, but the schools did. And it wasn't just the public schools. In smaller, often religious classrooms, out of the public spotlight, curriculums were easier to rewrite, quietly, subtly. No questions, no resistance. This is how it begins. It happened in Germany, it happened in China, in Cambodia, in Russia. Mao Zedong didn't just rewrite textbooks. He shut universities down entirely. Professors, intellectuals, anyone who questioned the narrative were arrested, tortured, or executed. An entire generation of young people grew up never knowing what had been erased. And now, in modern China, the playbook is still in use. Children are taught that Tiananmen Square never happened, that Hong Kong was never promised democracy, that Taiwan has always been part of China. The government doesn't just control the future, it controls the past. In Russia, school books no longer mention Stalin's purges. Books on race and slavery are being removed right now from U.S. schools. Parents who challenge curriculums are being labeled as threats because an uneducated electorate is an obedient one. If you don't know history, well, we'll make it up for you. And then you repeat it to everyone you know, even if it's a completely fabricated narrative. But education alone isn't enough. The next step is to control the press, because truth is dangerous. In 1973, a journalist in Santiago, Chile, gets an anonymous tip. A military coup is coming. The government will fall, democracy will die. He rushes to print the story. The people deserve to know, but before the ink dries, soldiers storm his office. He's dragged into the street, his typewriter is smashed, his newspaper shut down. He is never seen again. That's how Pinochet took over Chile, not with an army, but with silence. Benito Mussolini understood the power of the press. Before he ever seized full control of Italy, he was a journalist. He knew exactly how headlines could shape public opinion and how fear could silence opposition. Once in power, he outlawed dissenting newspapers, imprisoned critics, and flooded the country with fascist propaganda. He didn't just want loyalty, he wanted belief. And now, in Russia, investigative reporters don't get arrested. They don't get trials. They just fall out of windows. In North Korea, people don't even know what independent journalism is. There's one state-controlled news channel, one version of reality, the only version the people there will ever hear. In America today, the press is called the enemy of the people by the President of the United States. Journalists receive death threats. Entire news networks are threatened with lawsuits, an effort to crush opposing viewpoints, or an entire media empire is built on lies. The goal isn't just to spread propaganda, it's to make people so confused they don't believe anything at all. Because when you control the message, you control reality itself. There's another way to control people, make them fear each other. Slobodan Milosevic knew this all too well. In 1990s Serbia, he fueled ethnic tensions to justify war and genocide in the Balkans. He told the Serbs that their enemies were everywhere, that they had to strike first or be completely wiped out. By the time the killing started, people weren't just following orders. They believed they were protecting their country. In Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro used a different kind of fear, not of war, but of complete chaos. He warned of crime waves, claimed he alone could bring order. Then he convinced millions that the media, scientists, and election officials were all part of a vast conspiracy against him. In America today, threats of impeachment are made against judges who rule differently than what the executive branch demands. The agencies designed to act independently in legal and watchdog capacities are turned into the private agencies of the president. Politicians worldwide stoke fear. They tell people their way of life is under attack. They turn neighbors against each other. Because when people are too busy hating each other, they stop paying attention to the real threat, the real enemy, the one taking their rights away. But fear alone isn't enough. To complete this playbook, you need absolute control. Francisco Franco understood this in Spain. If you wrote a book criticizing his rule, you were exiled. If you performed a play he didn't approve of, you were arrested. If you were a professor and you spoke out, you never taught again. And now, when religion controls the state, you get places like Iran, where morality police decide what women wear, where political dissent is punishable by death, where the government claims divine authority over every aspect of life. Control education, control the press, control history, control culture, then rig the elections. Viktor Orbán in Hungary hasn't canceled democracy. He doesn't have to. He just changed the voting laws, redrew district lines, and made sure his party always wins. Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela still holds elections, but opposition leaders are jailed. Protesters simply disappear, and the results of that election are decided long before ballots are ever counted. And in America today, voting isn't banned. It's just made harder. Polling places are shut down. In some areas, only one location is open, creating long lines and discouraging turnout, while other districts have plenty of places to vote. Voting hours are shortened. Ballots are rejected for technicalities. And when you lose, you can claim it was rigged. Make your entire political party repeat it. Attempt to rewrite reality just by repeating it over and over again. This isn't a new tactic. It's a very old one. But in places where democracy has died, it's all too common. Because when people believe their vote doesn't matter, it eventually won't. Once the election is controlled, once the press is silenced, once fear has done its job, there's only one step left. Rewrite history. In China, Tiananmen Square never happened. In Russia, Stalin was never a dictator. In the United States, slavery is being rebranded as a necessary evil. Pol Pot didn't just erase books. He erased the people who wrote them, professors, historians, teachers. And now, fiction is rewritten into fact. Generations are growing up never knowing the real stories, because when you erase history, there's nothing left to fight for. This playbook has been used for centuries, and today it's being used again. The only question that remains, are we paying attention? Or will we let history repeat itself?
New episodes drop twice a week only on Heath Story. If you'd like to support the channel, subscribe now, leave a like and a comment, and become a member by clicking below.